So we're to the Parish Council meeting now. So we're going to start, as we always do, with apologies. So we have apologies from Simon Reed, who is up in Scotland doing his Duke of Edinburgh duties. We also have apologies from K Parkinson, who's up in Scotland, and the car's broken down. And we also have apologies from the police, but I do have a report from the police, and we have a quick update from K Parkinson. So when we get to the appropriate time, we'll go through those. Okay, so minutes of the last meeting held on the 6th of June. We've had a screening. Any comments? I approve them. That's a fair record. Any objections from the iPads on the left?
No. It's impressive this, I mean.
Like,
Can't be doing with pieces of paper.
this is old school over here, this is NASA over there.
Well, I came straight from work, so I've not had time to print anything, so...
Okay, we'll let you off.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, so they're signed. Also, we had our annual parish meeting. Obviously, those will be approved at the next parish meeting, but I've circulated the minutes. I don't know if anyone's got any comments for those that were here. We were all here.
You actually approved them at this meeting.
Traditionally, Pickmere Parish Council as well.
Twice.
Oh, okay. All right. So, if you're happy, I'll approve these too. On a roll. Okay. Okay. A declaration of interests from anybody for the agenda items this evening?
No.
No. So we've just had the surgery, but we do have a public participation section now. If anyone wants to raise anything, we can have 3 minutes each, up to a maximum of 15 minutes. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so going on to next item, item 5, is a report from the police. So we received a report from John Millman, which is PC 30219, who is our beat PC for Pickmere. So he sends his apologies, obviously, for not being here. The team's still short of a PCSO for Pickmere. As we heard last time, the sergeant has retired, so that position is still empty. So recruitment still makes it difficult. So in the last month, there were 26 calls to Cheshire Police in relation to Pickmere. As you can expect, half of those, 13, were about parking at the lake. As a result of that, they issued 20 tickets in the month of June. They were also at times or often met the Cheshire East parking enforcement. So at those times, obviously they let Cheshire East take the lead on most of the ticketing that goes around. Because again, we were informed last time, when the police leave the station, they only have a certain number of tickets they can have for the day. And if they need any more, they have to go back. And actually, Northwich Police were in attendance 2 weekends ago, and they had to phone up for more tickets, which is a bit of a waste of their time. But those are the rules. As everyone should be aware, there was one dispersal order given out this month by our friends at Northwich Police. So in terms of the other police activity, there were 2 reports of fraud, which have been referred to the relevant department, 2 reports from a traffic collision, or traffic collisions. The first one the police attended and no offences were identified. The second one is under investigation for failing to stop and failing to report. One report of a safety concern, and that's been referred to the correct agency by the police. There's been 1 theft in Pickmere, which is under investigation. There was 1 assault and the suspect was interviewed and offence admitted. One report of harassment, but no offences came from that. A domestic report which is still under investigation, and there was an initial call for a burglary, but the police attended, but this turned out to be a misunderstanding. So when John was here, I think last month, he just reiterates that if there are any issues, can you please get in contact with them either via email, remembering that he's only on duty on certain days, and if you email him, he might not respond for some days, 101, or if there's any danger to life or property, 999. So that's the police report. And then we do have an update from Councillor Parkinson. So just update, as we all know, on Frog Lane, the road has now been repaired, and Councillor Parkinson has kindly reiterated her request to Cheshire East for our yellow lines to be repainted. And Alison is busy collecting photographic evidence to send to them of the state of our yellow lines, which I think it's going to be quite difficult because it's going to be very hard to picture something that's not there. But you never know.
We'll try.
Okay. All right. Everyone happy with those reports? Any questions on those? Okay. So we'll move on to finance. So we have a report from Jack to our current position. Does anyone have any comments on those? Seems reasonably straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Everything okay on my left?
Yes, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay. And then we have to authorise some new payments, and Jack has submitted his expenses, and also some items in addition to the cleaning. There should be 2 invoices somewhere for us to pay. As discussed, recently Simon has refurbished the defibrillators and rented a temporary replacement.
May I make a comment about that,
Yeah.
Chair? Some may remember I got involved with the defib, but Simon had done it traditionally, and then took over. But that's a lot of money, plus VAT. So I'd just like to, how can I put this kindly, let it be noted that that seems a waste to me, when my understanding was the defibrillator needed new batteries. That's what I was told by the company when I spoke to them before Simon got involved, that it cost of £55. But meanwhile we had a replacement and whatever that cost was.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously Simon's not here, but my understanding from Simon was that he spoke to the company before, and they said it wasn't the batteries.
That's what he told me, but that was, I can only report what I heard. And by that time, of course, she said, yeah, no, let Simon carry on with it, because he had, which was fine, that's what I dropped. But I just wanted to note that, as I've said a few times before, I hate waste. And that seemed to me, on the face of it, a waste of money.
Okay. Well, I think, I mean, going forward, we've put in place a weekly or monthly check of the equipment, so it hopefully won't get to this situation again. Also, you know, it is a difficult one. I mean, for me, it's a safety issue. We had 2 defibrillators in the village that were both signposted, and neither of them worked. So I think
You put a book inside.
There's a book inside where you can just sign it off.
Chris signs off every week.
Yeah. So I think maybe in mitigation, because it wasn't that, we may not have taken as much time as we could have if we just been doing original maintenance.
I'm sure it was a one-off, but I wanted to make the point.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have a payment for the licence for the village hall, which allows us to have an alcoholic present bar dance every month on a Friday.
Chair, can I ask a question on that, please?
Sure.
Can we seek some clarification on whether or not the licence is actually for the wine club or for parish council or for the village hall? What are there should be some actual details, shouldn't there? Because if it's just for the wine club, there isn't a wine club, so why are we still paying £70?
My understanding is the licence is for premises to allow the... I mean, I have another related question. It struck me as, why does a wine club need a licence? But I don't know the answer to that one either, so I won't bring that up. But yeah, I think we can check, but I think it would be useful to maintain a licence.
Yeah, well,
because it allows us to have
if it's just
events.
for use of the village hall.
Yeah. But yeah, my understanding, and I will confirm and check, but my understanding is premises are licensed, not individuals or councils or wine clubs. And then the other things, Opus Design, so that was the material for the HS2 Select Committee presentation. So
How much is that?
1,000. So a budget of 3,000 was allocated.
Did they get quotes in on that? Because that's something that you'd asked about, and it seemed a lot of money, I thought, for what they'd done.
My understanding is they didn't get quotes on, there was something raised by the auditor, and I think at the last meeting we did say that we were going to put together a system to allow that not to happen again.
That sounds an awful lot of money, because I think there was about 5 slides shown.
Yeah, but I think
HS2.
But I think unfortunately their time was cut down, so I think there probably was more work done.
How many slides was there, Ewan, for 1,000?
I don't know if I'd have to ask that question. But I'm sure there would, you know, in that situation you prepare a number of slides, you prepare reserve slides, so there'll be a lot more slides than... And that, as I said on the day, they didn't really get time to show very much at all.
I mean, just before we pay £1,000, can we find out what was actually done? Because none of us here know what was done. And the fact that they put £3,000 in and then it was only £1,000, it's not the sort of way I would do my business. I'd like to know what was done.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, you know, we can't really look at what happened before. All we can do is say that going forward, we're going to make sure there are 3 quotes for any piece of work, you know, unless it's, you know, small. But you know, if you would like me to go back and get further information, I'm happy to do it. But I'm not sure it's a good use of Jack's time, because we're going to have to pay it anyway. It's a contract.
But there was no price agreed, was there?
There was a budget of up to 3,000.
A budget up to 3, but there was no quotation.
I couldn't answer that question because I don't know. I mean, we could go back and look, but I don't know if it's useful.
I just find it very odd, that, personally. Anyway, okay.
No, I agree that it would be normal to get 3 quotes from vendors for something of that order of magnitude, but they didn't.
I'd like an open-ended thing on something I'd do, you know, it'd be very important.
Unfortunately, that might happen before we're having that again, so I can't help you there. And then we've just got expenses from Chris and Sarah, which seem reasonable.
Yes.
Compared to what other councils have had to pay.
Can I just be clear on whether you are or are not paying that bill? It's outstanding since September.
Which this one?
The Opus Design one.
Oh, the budget was approved in September, up to 3,000. So do we need to have a vote on whether we're going to pay that?
It wasn't clear whether you were excluding it from the overall or whether you were just noting that procedures were going to change. Got to pay it.
Yeah. So my position would be we have to pay it because it's been agreed.
Yeah.
And we can't change the past. But if we feel we have to have a vote on whether we pay it or not. I don't see how you avoid it legally.
No, we should just pay it.
Okay. All right, so is everyone happy with that?
Yeah. Just one comment on that. I mean, if they'd had their full hour and a half to give their full presentation, I'm sure we'd have seen a lot more of the slides.
Yeah.
And I think turning up to Parliament with some shoddy slides wouldn't be very impressive looking. So I think it was an important project that they were doing. I think we agreed that going forward we'll follow the auditor's recommendation and have three quotes in future for this sort of work. The agenda work did a very good job.
I thought that was a legal requirement. You got to be
Well, on the web. It's good practice. Okay, and then we've got, next one is on to planning matters. So we've got a report from Jack. Anyone got any comments on the planning matters that have come forward? Any input from you, Peter?
Just think the ones on the Greenbelt land, I think the Parish Council have always objected to development in the Greenbelt, so whether we go along with that the same, but it's down to the planners, isn't it, that decide in the end.
But we are consultants and we can raise object. I mean, we never looked at the material that's been submitted. The one thing I mean, I'm not an expert on planning, but I am an expert. Well, I say an expert. I do know how to run a business. So, I mean, the plan is to have a calf rearing establishment on 4 hectares, which does 200 calves a year. Doesn't seem enough grass for all those calves, but the gross profit is.
If you read the thing, it doesn't need the grass.
Yeah.
Because it's buying them in as like 3-week-old calves, keeping them for 10 weeks in pens, and then selling them on to somebody who's a beef producer that has the grass and everything else. And it's the same with the sheep.
So
if you read it.
What they do then if they don't sell them on? Anyway, I'm not a farmer, so that but I think if you look at the numbers, the bit that surprised me was the gross margin is very small. I couldn't see anything in cost of goods that would cover employment, and there's a house being built for 3 people.
So 5 people.
3-bedroom house.
3-bedroom house. Well,
there's 5 people in there.
Okay.
But if you read the thing, its profit for the year is something like 41,000.
Okay. Well, maybe I misread it, but the gross margin was only 24. So how you have a profit of 41 and a gross margin of 24, I don't know. Because that's more than you've got.
Well, did you read the one from the...
It was the report from the special company that...
Yeah. It actually said 41 in the end, because it was with 2 sides to it, wasn't it?
There was the ewes, and there was the calves.
Oh, okay.
And the calves.
Side.
So one was probably 29, I think, wasn't it? And the other was 12 or something like that.
Okay.
But again, it's when you look on the planning portal, residents have got a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
But I don't know. It's,
well, I mean, yeah, I think the one resident has mentioned that it was built before the date as in the planning application.
that was built last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there is one approved shed that's already in progress. They want to build another shed next to it. So, and it's all on Greenbelt land, and the owner of the forest wants to cut down the forest for grazing. So the property would be seen from the road.
Yeah.
So
I've got a few issues about this, if I can.
yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, please.
Is that good, Peter?
Yeah, sure.
So it's Greenbelt land. I can't see this meets any of the exclusions for building on Greenbelt land. The building has already been built, so the planning application's gone in now, but the building was built sometime last year. I saw it myself when I was walking the dog. Before I was involved with the parish council or knew that there was a planning application going to go in or anything. The photograph that the applicant's put in with this application showing the agricultural building from the previous application shows the corner of this building on the photograph. So they've actually provided proof of this building that they're applying for planning permission for in their application for planning permission for this building. The previous application that was approved for the agricultural building didn't need planning permission because that's an agricultural building. But if you look at that application, they claim to own land that they do not own. So they've more than tripled the amount of land that they, in that application, claimed that they owned. So I'm a bit concerned that when they're putting in false applications previously, I'm a bit concerned about what we can believe about this application, and particularly as they're applying for future planning, or planning now for a future build of a building that they've already built.
Yeah, but I think there are two buildings. There's one they've built.
No, but it said no, the application is to build the house and to build the agricultural building.
But I think the application said that the house started being built in April. Is that right? And there's another building they want to build opposite the barn they've already got.
That's right, yeah.
And that's the other thing I suppose that came to my mind is it says that one agricultural employee may have to stay overnight with the whatever they are using cattle. But then they want a house for 5.
It doesn't add up. It's a thing.
In their application, they quote one of the strategic priority criteria as being developing rural, I forget the exact thing, but it's about developing further, agricultural or rural businesses, basically. Yeah. And they put that in support of the application, but there are at least 2 of the strategic priorities that they are going against with their application. So there is strategic priority 3 subsection 6, which is avoiding developing land that might be at risk from the effects of climate change. That field floods every winter, and we presumably only get worse with climate change. And then there's also strategic priority 4, which is addressing local causes of water, air, light, noise and other forms of pollution and the contamination of land, reducing the impact of local communities and meeting the requirements of the Water Framework Directive. There's no discussion in their application as to what they're going to do about sewerage or electricity supply either, for that matter. So it's not quite clear how they're going to have a dwelling suitable for human habitation in a field that floods that you can't have a septic tank in, where there is no sewage supply, no main sewer supply. Okay. And there's just no comment on that.
All right. So it sounds like we would like to object on saying because it's greenbelt land, in agreement with. And then there were some other clarifications that we'd like to do with.
So it's the views of the residents.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the residents have been quite vocal in their views. There's more and more every day.
Yeah.
So I think
it doesn't add up, does it? Either.
No, it seems unusual to me, but I'm not an expert on planning. But I think if everyone's in agreement, then we'll formulate a response and talk to some more learned people than us on planning and see how we word that.
Yeah, but we need to get some facts.
Okay. So should we take a vote on that?
Yeah.
So those 4 objective. Okay. That'll be unanimous then. Okay. Any other planning matters that anyone has an issue with?
I suppose it's the same as the one in School Lane as well, because that's greenbelt.
Okay.
A 5-bedroom house. And it seems like it's only being built for the market. So.
Right. Okay.
So so that one again, as you say, is on greenbelt land. They need to knock down some agricultural buildings, which you can't build on greenbelt land if you knock down agricultural buildings to build. However, I think last year or 2 years ago, I think it's last year actually, they successfully had a planning application to change the use of the agricultural buildings to ancillary domestic buildings. And you can build on greenbelt land if you knock down ancillary domestic buildings.
Okay.
So I think they are allowed to build on greenbelt land on that basis.
Don't they have to maintain part of the original structure? I'm thinking about Hall Lane and Bonds there. The part of the original structure needs to remain, or
I don't know. You'd have to ask
you can't go bigger than the footprint that's already there.
They're going smaller then.
Oh.
they're going to smaller than the footprint of what's already there, and they're going to reduce the amount of hard standing, put more planting in. So I'm not sure there's a sort of legal basis to object to that one in the same way.
Okay. Do we want to take a vote on that one? So, those in favour of objecting to that application? Anybody against? No. Everybody abstaining? Okay. So, we won't object to that one. Anything on the other ones?
There's nothing else that jumps out at me about that.
Okay.
Just an update on the actions that's just still outstanding with planning.
The enforcement side of it.
Yeah. But if we can approach
Planning, I get it.
what about what's
I don't
happening?
know, planning. Planning, I get it.
All right, so we'll ask Kate to inquire on our behalf as to how the enforcement is coming along, as listed in the report. Okay.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
Exciting bit. So reports from the clerk and councillors. So just to start off, sort of looking at a strategy report or strategy policy for the council, which has been circulated to everyone. So basically giving the broad terms of reference for how we do things going forward. So I don't know if anyone's got any particular comments on the report that was circulated. But my plan would be to make that available to the village as a whole, to allow them to comment on. As it is a collection of the items that we collected while we were all campaigning to become parish councillors, and just get feedback from the residents that this is something that they have in mind, particularly other things that we could add.
I would like to say, in the maid, that rather than send it out in its entirety as it is, would it be possible to condense it down somewhat and to invite response from residents from that, and then issue a much bigger document? Would there be any merit in having a task force to look at how we can actually do this, so that we can get some positive feedback and some involvement with the residents to start with?
We could do that. I mean, my thought would be it's not the biggest document that was ever written.
It's rather, no, it isn't, but if you get however many pages that is going to be dropping through your door, is it going to attract the response that we're looking for from residents?
Okay, I mean, my intention wouldn't be for it to be dropping through anyone's door. We're going to take it around by paper. I think that's, I personally object to that on environmental principles.
Right. How would we do it then?
Well, I think it could be available, well, it's available already on the council website. If anyone wants a paper copy who can't download it or doesn't know how to use a computer, we can put a note in Pickmere Press to say, I will hand deliver a personal copy to anyone who wants.
I feel that perhaps we're missing a chance and an opportunity to engage with the residents.
Well, I suppose, if you don't mind, Chair, I suppose the question is where you go next from this document. If this is a sort of broad vision of the next, 4 years, or potentially beyond, if there are projects that are running beyond that, then do you get comments on this and then sort of have a, top 10 that we get people to comment on or sort of rank? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I just thought my idea was, or immediately just reasoning that, we're saying that we're going to do a lot of things that we're then leaving ourselves open to be told, well, you said here that you were going to do that, and you haven't done it. I'm thinking of how we said we wanted to be open and honest and engage with the residents more, that if it was a more broad brush approach, like we want to tidy up the village, or then from that you can ask people then to say, well, feedback on what your ideas are for that. But try to do it in a more constructive way, wording a questionnaire or wording your questions so that you're going to get positive responses back.
I did suggest a suggestion box that we haven't actually arranged to put up here yet, because obviously we haven't bought one yet, but that was another way that we were going to ask residents to
I just
feedback
wondered
to us.
I just wondered if there was perhaps a subgroup or a task force that could get together that, you know, we could perhaps really make this a sharp document.
Didn't this happen before? I thought we'd done something like this, the council previously had done something like this. Well, I'm thinking when the police did their own,
The police have done one recently on traffic and things like that. Then there was one done for the neighbourhood plan.
Right.
And then by the previous parish council, that was a questionnaire. But then the last one that was done before that, I think, was in 2010 or 2012, where that was quite a weighty document that went out, and we had a lot of spurious comments back on that. That people wanted squash courts, and you know, that you do have to be careful how you.
I know. I'm not comfortable with this myself, having done it in a different way, because of just what you said, actually. Yeah. Because it's inviting a lot of negativity.
Yes, it is. Which is what I was trying to say. As, you know, if we get together as a small group or take it out of this meeting to just thrash a few things and then bring it back to council to say, okay, council, now what do you think of this?
Isn't it about how the question is asked?
Yeah.
It's when they do, you know, are you going to vote Labour or Conservative?
Yes, it is.
How the question is asked can be done in so many different ways to actually make it how you want it to be. So there's an awful lot of thought would have to go into it about the psychology of something like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can't see how what's been proposed will change the response. So we have a document, I mean, it's a strategy document. It doesn't say we're going to do all this in 4 years. It just lists all the things that we would like to consider when we're making decisions. And all we're doing is asking the residents if there's anything on this list that is, you know, glaringly obviously not there. But it is, you know, this is the sum collection of all the conversations that we've all had with people while we were trying to get elected.
Yeah.
So
is that
I'd be
the
surprised
start then? That's the start of it, isn't it? For them to come out and say...
Yeah. But I don't want this to become a 6-month project while we ask people what they want to add.
We want to get something out there as soon as possible to the residents to say that yes, we are doing this and that something is being done. But by the same token, I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot.
Well, how do we shoot ourselves in the foot?
By saying that we're going to do all this.
We're not saying it. Nowhere in this document is saying we're going to do all this. This is a strategic vision of all the things that, you know, we should consider.
But
we didn't say we're going to do any one of them.
There's one or two things that initiate a project to retain the best village award. That's gone. That's no longer applicable because we don't run it anymore.
Well, thanks for the feedback.
Sorry. I just wondered if there was any merit in doing that. No?
It seems to me that actually, I mean, you could consult from here till eternity and you'll get a document pretty much like that. So that kind of, I think, you know, as elected members, you kind of know what the community want. The bit that I think you want to consult on is how you implement those. So as a strategic document, fine, it perhaps needs a little tidying up in places, but otherwise, perfectly reasonable document. But what you consult on is how you do any of them. So if somebody wants to see an enhanced environment, that's what you consult on. What do you see as an enhanced environment? So, if you like, you're then having lots of smaller consultations on things people can get behind, rather than a big overall picture, which people never get behind.
No.
And that might be item 9.2. That might be the item 9.2.
Right.
Okay, so I guess we can maybe vote on the proposal that we make this available via the website. There's probably a message in Pickmere Press that people aren't computer savvy.
I'm sure people will comment, won't they?
And they can send their comments back in. And then
Can we also share it on the Pickmere Council, Parish Council Facebook page? You can share documents on Facebook.
You can share
we can share on the other Facebook pages, of which there are more each day.
The Pickmere Press closes on Sunday
Closes on Sunday, I'm not sure that.
for articles to go into the next one.
Okay, so
It's got to be done by Sunday.
I will make sure it's done by Sunday. Okay, so can we take a vote on that proposal that we put this out for circulation with a view to finalising at the next meeting? Those four? Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, next item is 9.2, which is the establishment of committees. We discussed this in the previous meeting. So I've circulated a number of suggestions of what we could establish. So I don't know if people wanted to discuss that list.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Just a question I had, which maybe Jackie can help us with, in terms of if we set all of these things up as committees, does that mean that we have to, all the meetings will be public meetings, the agenda has to go out 7 days before, 5 days, thank you, before? I just wonder whether that's a lot of committees and we'd be better having working parties for some of these things, or some other structure where it can be run a bit more informally, but then decisions can come back to council for decisions to be made, if you see what I mean.
It certainly is a huge commitment to, I mean, there's 2 councillors not here, so there's 8 of you.
Yeah, there's one not here.
There's 7 of you. That's a lot of you to populate this many committees. Yes, committees are all open to the press and public, possibly with the exception of your employment committee, which could meet on an ad hoc basis. I mean, on the, kind of looking at tonight's agenda, I'm not sure that you really need a planning committee. You didn't spend a great deal of time talking about planning this evening.
No.
And it could have been tighter. So.
Just to explain, the reason for the planning committee was just the tight timelines that we get. So sometimes they come in before we have a meeting. Well, the response has to be before we have a meeting, by the time we get informed.
I think sometimes a good way of dealing with that is to write your own planning policy. So you already have an agreement, or it's like the teeniest neighbourhood plan, where you decide what your view is on a number of types of development, so that when an application comes in like that, some of them can get weeded out by the clerk, and it just narrows it down. Unless you have a finance committee that kind of meets on an ad hoc basis, so it would meet in an emergency, if you like, if you really had to have a discussion about a planning application. The same with finance. Tonight's meeting was very light on discussion around finance. It was there prepared for you. Perhaps something like a finance working group that looks at kind of doing internal checking, which the council has to do, and then reports back to the council on a regular basis. That could work too.
Can I ask a question as well? Is it the fact that you have to have certain committees, like you have to have an asset maintenance committee, or is there any rules? Or
I think my own rule because there is no rule that says you must have a committee, although there are then some procedures that mean you couldn't do them unless you had a committee. So staffing is an obvious one. So at some point during the year you're going to want to perhaps recruitment, like we have at the moment, or perhaps you're going to discuss a pay rise or appraisals or something like that. You really need that little ad hoc committee that's ready to go when you need it. But again, it isn't going to meet monthly. So staffing, but then anything else is really about whether or not you haven't got enough time in your council meetings to give those topics the attention they deserve. That's why you set up committees. So it'll be individual for every council as to whether you need them or not. And of course, it's not set in stone. You know, you can give it a go and see how it works. And if it's not working for you, then change the arrangements. But just as it stands there, I think you would struggle for all of those to meet regularly. Yeah.
So it would. So you're saying, Jackie, that the process, we would be slowing our progress by being overloaded in that way. So unable to make the decisions that we really ought to be doing, do you think?
I don't think it would slow you down. I mean, a month will still take a month, if you know what I mean. But the difference is you'll go to 5 meetings, not 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only 4 or 5.
But you've not got a big pool to work with. I'm not saying they're not quality, but they're not a high number.
But again, in terms of wording, a committee is only made up of councillors, or can it be councillors and non-councillors?
They can be councillors and non-councillors. Non-councillors have no voting rights.
Right, okay.
But you will still need a quorum at every council. You need a quorum of councillors at every committee meeting.
So if it's 3 on the committee, you'll need 2 there? Or
No, the minimum number you have is 3. So however many people you've got on a committee,
yeah, you need
a
minimum
quorum is at
3
least
councillors.
a third or 3, whichever is the greater.
Okay.
So you'll always be taking 3 out. So it's still quite a big commitment.
One more question, please. I'm sorry if you don't mind. Does the clerk have to attend each committee meeting for minutes?
The short answer is no, but again there's a but. But if you have a new clerk, then in order to have someone who really has an overview of your business, it's going to be really difficult for them to do that if you're holding meetings and making decisions and they're not there as part of the decision-making process. I mean, you make the decisions, don't get me wrong, but if they're not there and hearing the discussion that's not minuted, I don't mean it's secret, but it's part of that conversation, then I think it's difficult for them to really get to understand your business.
So in actual fact, it would be better if it was more like fewer committees and more task force, or?
Yeah. As I say, I think finance, you could slim that down to a working group that reports regularly to the main council. Planning, if you have one, perhaps look at having a planning policy and then it only coming together if you can't bring the planning applications to a full council meeting.
Yeah.
Public services and maintenance, recreation, leisure and events. I guess for me that is at best one committee with lake parking and ASB task force in there as well, because they're all really interlinked. And committees and working groups have a real tendency to grab power. So they're kind of like little viruses. They kind of spread. So they start off with a very small remit, and in no time at all they've kind of developed into a mini parish council. That in turn is having a big call on your clerk's time.
Yes, it would be better than just task groups. Instead of all those committees. They're not needed.
Nice.
The only odd one on there is your neighbourhood plan steering group.
Yeah.
Because your neighbourhood plan steering group is really an external organisation almost on which you have representation. So it really needs to drive itself with input from you rather than being something that you're driving.
Okay, so amend this now. So
On the fly.
We're learning.
I think so. The proposal is that we have a finance committee,
I think you have a finance
working group. Sorry. Excuse me. We have a planning committee, but we're going to put together a policy, and that will meet only if we can't cover it in council.
Yes, they'd have an ad hoc meeting,
In an emergency.
and if they do that, can you wait for 5 days notice of agenda and things, would you still have to?
It's still a full
So
vacancy.
we need a planning policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it should be few and far between.
So, you would
That's what
basically, if a planning application came up and you've got 2 weeks to respond to it and there isn't a full council meeting in those 2 weeks, you'd have to put something out within a few days of notice of an extraordinary meeting in the planning committee. And then,
So, I mean, with that kind of time scale, and 2 weeks is the minimum notice you should have,
Yeah.
you should be able to hit that.
yeah.
Particularly if there's only 3 of you, really.
And then we're going to amalgamate 1.4.3 and 1.4.4, so public services and maintenance, recreation, leisure, events and assets into one working group.
Maybe community and assets?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Community and assets. Yeah.
Anything's better than F and GP.
And then, I mean, the other thing I had about the rolling in 1.4.5 is that is the biggest issue that we as a council have to deal with. I think on its own, when it overlaps, I think we need...
But does that need to be a committee, or is that just a working group of councillors and members of the public who come up with ideas, and those ideas then come to full council for discussion and decisions?
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have to be off making decisions on its own, unless we want to empower it to be able to do quick things like putting up signs or whatever.
I think the one thing you've probably learned is that making quick decisions on the lake is probably not a good idea, unless you're drowning.
Yeah.
In which case, it's a really good idea to make quick decisions.
Well, then we could have an EGM at the full council, couldn't we? If we needed to. Not for drowning.
Throw a ring in or
I thought you meant metaphorically drowning rather than actually. Sorry.
So if you are only going to delegate discussion, then a working group is brilliant, and a working group can be comprehensive. It can include as many people as you want, because it never takes a decision, and then it brings those recommendations back to this arena where you can talk about them in public, where the decision is made. So there is merit in having that as a working group.
Okay. So we'll leave the lake issue as a working group on its own for now, which might roll into the other two. Employment committee, I think we definitely need that.
Yeah, but it meets ad hoc. It just meets when you need it.
So I think on that committee, I think we do need 2 sides. So there's the general employment committee and the appeal employment committee, because everyone who's employed has a right to appeal.
You just need the committee, and your policy probably says that an appeal would be to any members that were not involved in the first round.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have to be chosen yet.
Okay. So we'll keep with that one. And then on the neighbourhood plan steering group, unfortunately, we were going to establish what we actually had in place, which we don't know, and the person who does know is the unfortunate person who isn't here. So my plan for that is that we continue on as is for now, and regenerate it along the same lines as it was before, and look for people from the residents to run that for us and allow us to be represented on.
What's the time scale on that? There has to be an end point to that, I guess, before we put our plan in. Do we know what that is?
I think some people take about, they reckon that some people can be on it 3 years before they get it. I don't think there's a time scale with it. I think to just get it right is the key.
Have you got any external help with it?
The previous one we did have, yeah.
We did have that.
Previous council.
I think they all resigned.
Yeah.
No, I mean external help.
Yes,
That's
they all resigned. I think
No,
they were
a professional. There we are.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
But the professionals resigned,
Right.
and they're not going to be replaced by the place where we got the professional from.
Because there is a parish plans, gosh, that's going back a while, neighbourhood plans officer
Yeah.
at Cheshire East who will happily come out, talk to you, give you advice, etc.
Should it be that we restart the whole of our mix?
I think the thing to do is talk to him. His name escapes me.
Brown.
It's Tom. It'll come to me. Is talk to him because he will know what the position was with the old group and know where you go on from there.
All right, sounds like a plan.
And there's no disadvantage in doing it because there's no charge for doing it.
By sort of consultant. So,
Tom,
And then 3 quotes.
Tom Brown.
okay. So just in terms of these different working groups that we now have, I was going to look for champions from within to take those on. So let's start the bottom work up because I know the first one is the one that everyone's not going to want to do. So is there anyone who's prepared to be champion for the neighbourhood plan steering group? And we kick that off?
I'll
Anyone else?
second that.
Well, you have two of you, I know.
No, I don't want to.
Well, there's only one person I don't think we need to have a vote.
Yeah.
Nobody else wants to take that on? No? Okay. So, Alison will champion neighbourhood watch. Employment
Plan.
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 You said watch.
Watch, sorry. That as well. But that's a different group. Not here. Employment, so I was going to take that on as champion. Listen. But if anyone else wants to join me, then I'm
We need 3.
more than happy.
You need 3 for a committee.
I'm happy to go on.
Okay.
So that's
You
Lorraine,
or Ren to
Jane.
does anyone? Okay.
And who's the third one?
So me, Nick, right. Anyone else want to? I guess we have more than 3 if we want to.
Employment.
Yeah. Okay. So the working group for lake issues. Who wants to champion that?
Me.
Jane,
Jane?
Chris. I think we need 3 because the working group. More the merrier.
Chris and... You're getting press gagged into this.
Okay, but we can also get residents.
I'm sure I'll get involved, but I wasn't going to be an official, official.
But as it's working, we don't need 3 living to do. So you guys can then come from the residents and get all those ideas.
You don't have to have 3 then, do it?
So
No,
Nick, Chris, and Jane.
No, I didn't say.
No, not Nick.
no, not Nick.
Nick is not
I
champion.
mean, I'll help out.
Yeah. Put Lorraine down.
So, no.
You don't.
It's you and Chris, and then
Okay.
you go get your friends from the residents,
Okay.
and then we do it. And then the 2 we've rolled together.
Recreation.
So we can do that as a working group.
We've got finance and then we've got the joint one, I think we called
Yeah.
it.
So I'm working backwards because I know the further we go up, the less volunteers I'm going to get. So that working group,
Assets and things like
assets and maintenance and but through the
Community and what did we
Yeah.
say? Community and
Asset and community, wasn't it?
Asset and community, yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
So
that.
the Knights, Lorraine and Jane.
Yeah.
Lorraine and Alison.
And Peter.
Yeah.
I said the Knights.
Yeah,
Yes.
she just said that.
Oh, sorry. Then planning committee. So we need 3 of those.
I'm happy to go on that.
Third one.
Chris, you said you were interested in planning?
Planning.
I must have misheard you.
Bearing in mind you have to be very well at the last second.
Oh, yeah. That's not my fault. Being available at the last second.
Because you can't dial in from work. Okay, so that's 2. We need I'll be third if the women.
I've just got Nick, or have you just been press going?
Peter's...
Peter.
Peter.
No. So going once, going twice.
He's on to it.
Okay, so put them down. As you can see as we go further on. And that's the one that everyone wants to
Not
join.
my strong suit.
Finance. Peter, myself, and
Yes, please.
Chris. Excellent. All right. Everyone happy? Good. Okay. Next one is just to consider councillor training. So I did do an update before the meeting, so I know Alice and Peter have already had their training. The right-hand side of the
We're booked in.
is booked in for September. Have you made
Not booked in, aiming to do September, but not actually booked on yet.
Up to date.
And I did my chairman's course today.
We could try and get you...
The person that did it was very, very good.
Yeah, I'll just have to check. There's a couple of dates. I'll just have to check.
Well, Chris has got the date, so...
Just
Yeah, I've got them.
as well, there was another course that's coming up on roles and responsibilities. Is there any money left in the budget?
I need to ask Lorraine's custodian of the massive £200. So when we've worked out how much we've spent, look at that. But we can always.
Or come round to mine and
But I
watch
think
together.
as we're a new council, I mean, there's one on
I
planning as
didn't
well.
hear that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Whoopsie! You know that course we did where we all sat behind each other?
I thought you were just recording them for us, Lorraine.
Yeah, we sell them on the market on Sunday.
I mean, I guess that £200 budget was set at a time when you didn't have 7 new councillors coming onto the council all at one go, so we may need to think about increasing that, because everyone's going to need to do the induction, everyone's probably going to need to do roles and responsibilities, at least you need to do chair, there's planning.
There's the code of conduct as well.
Well, your Cheshire East Code of Conduct, there's one coming up on the 11th, which I've got the monitoring officer to do, and it is free.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and it's Zoom, so just register for it.
That seems...
That'll be a 3-line whip for that one.
What I would say is that them as you who are taking responsibility for finance really should look at the finance training. It is detailed, okay? And planning, we buy in professional planning trainers to deliver. I mean, I do a very general overview of planning, which I'm comfortable with, but they do a detailed overview of planning and how to get the best out of your engagement with planning system. So I can't remember the cost at the moment, it could be as much as £45 each. So I would send your chairman of either of those committees to relevant training for them. Anything else, negotiate with me.
Moving on. So something that's been kicked down the road for a couple of meetings now. It's just to look at the programme council meetings. So one of the things that I think came up during the election time was that there were some people who felt that always having it on a Tuesday when they couldn't attend was stopping them from coming to council meetings, whether they are available online now. So the proposal was that we looked at an alternative day, and a quick straw poll, that seemed to be a Thursday when most people were available. So I suppose my discussion point would be, obviously we have nothing in August, but going forward, I think the next September will probably have to be on a Tuesday anyway, but whether we want to try some Thursdays after that, and maybe take attendance numbers, and if it makes no difference at all, then at least we can go back and say, well, we did it, and no more people came, or because it's equally possible that those that could come on a Tuesday won't be able to come on a Thursday, and vice versa. But I think I am for engagement with our community, and it was something that was raised. So I don't know how we feel about that. If there's particular Thursdays that people can't do, then we can work around that for sure. But just because it's always been a Tuesday doesn't mean
Thursday was easier for you, wasn't it?
I'm unlikely to get stuck at work on Thursday. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's worth trying.
Come today.
Pete,
It's iffy for me.
I know you're more traditionalist on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's just if you mail a Thursday because I do something else on Thursday, but I'd have to see if we could change that.
Okay.
Well, it's up until 7:30
Oh, cool.
on a Thursday, so we can just have a quick of the tables and straight into it. But we're out generally dead on time, so
Okay.
I can just sumber the table.
Alrighty. So we'll look at that and I'll consult with you guys and
Yeah.
we can try Thursday. If there's certain Thursdays you can't do, then we won't do those Thursdays. Because I'd rather we had engagement with the council first and the residents second.
So the date of your next meeting?
It will still be the Tuesday, I don't think.
Tuesday the...
First Tuesday in
September.
Okay, why don't you meet in
September.
August?
First September. Do you have a list somewhere?
Why don't we?
Holidays? I don't know.
I'm going to. Are you away? I mean, should we have one in August or?
You know traditionally why schools have long holidays, councils don't meet, etc. in August.
It's just that we've got so much to do.
Yeah,
maybe
It's probably the harvest in or something.
Yeah, it's because we put all the poor children and anyone who's got, any fitness about them at all out in the field picking the crops. So unless that's what you're doing, meeting in August.
I think we should, if we can.
We wanted to recruit a clerk as well, so,
Yeah.
Oh, we will be doing that before September.
Are you away?
only if you have a meeting.
I am away. But I didn't put the schedule together, so don't blame me for no August. So traditionally, Pickmere Parish Council have not met in August, except for extraordinary general meetings.
I could buck the trend. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the worst that would happen? The rose hips won't get picked. The potatoes will stay in the fields.
Potatoes are September, November.
Harvest will remain.
Well, so the first Tuesday would be the 1st of August,
Yeah.
or the first Thursday
Can you do the first?
would be the 3rd of August.
I could do the 1st of August.
Yeah.
Since the council has to set its own meeting dates, I suggest you put it in the diary, and then if you don't need it, you can cancel it.
Okay. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, first of all, let's get to the diary. We'll look at alternate Thursdays going forward and hopefully come up with some Thursdays to see if more people come. If people make prizes. Okay, next item is the social media policy. Related to in advance of the meeting, so I don't know if any of the members have any comments on the social media policy. It has been extended to include media generally.
Point 4 in it says noted and it should say noted. If something's found, a note will be left. It says noted.
Okay.
And point 8, it says TC. Do you actually mean TV or?
8.
Yes, the title, TC Radio.
I don't know what TC is.
Well, 8. Sorry.
I think it should be TV, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
TV. Sorry.
I'm doing.
Yeah.
I didn't do before.
So it's 2 typos. That's quite good for me. I'm not a professional.
I'm just disappointed in Kerry, really.
There was some spelling mistake as well.
No, the
No
one,
way.
in the original one, the Clark's address was wrong because it was capital C to start with.
Capital.
C from Clark is email address.
Emails are
They're
not.
not case sensitive. It
Case
wouldn't
Oh,
matter.
okay.
So.
Yeah, but it's changed in this one.
It's a miracle. We're getting on the same wavelength, you and me. Okay.
That was wrong.
So apart from the typos and alleged spelling mistakes, which I'll check, I'm sure it's the Zimbabwean spelling. We're happy with that?
Yeah.
Anyone objecting? Okay. So we'll We'll publish that on our website, the early opportunity. Okay. And then Village Hall. So looking at the... So one of the issues that we have with the Village Hall is it's very much a loved part of the village. Nobody seems to want to get rid of it, but we do have a problem with, apart from internet, a very small car park that makes it, certainly as an asset for making finance out and renting out, makes it quite difficult. So it's been suggested that we approach the landowner around the building, which is Crown Estates, to see if they would be happy to discuss whether they would sell us some of the land, just to extend that. Us has been quite kind and hunted down the person responsible. So if we're all in agreement, then there's a letter drafted and that will go tomorrow.
Definitely. Good idea.
Okay. And then we also have, as we heard earlier, there are some urgent maintenance done on lots of our assets, but particularly the Village Hall, because people use this. So we need to get hold of that. And again, we talked about the committee for whatever it's called, assets now. But can I get a volunteer to champion that? Look at me. So I think, especially anything that's urgent safety measures should be actioned. And now we have a meeting in August. There's plenty of time to come back with things to do. Okay. And also, if we are going to do a lot of work on the Village Hall with our new policy, we need to get one-on-one quote. I think we go for 3 quotes, and someone tells us they're not interested, then I'll accept. Well, I think we should accept 2. I say I'll accept. The council should accept 2. But let's try for 3. Okay, and now for 9.7. So just an update on our sunny weekend visitors. So I'm sure it covers not a shock to anyone that we have big trouble with over-tourism, antisocial behaviour, drug issues, barbecues being lit on our land and on our grass, and I think that as it gets warmer, the chances of grass setting fire becomes bigger. So it's quite. And then I came back from the US the other weekend, got off the plane, got home to get a phone call to say there was someone launching a motorboat off our land. I think that is the stupidest thing I've seen of all things. So taking the motorboat out, through children paddling and swimming in the lake. I went down and talked to them and asked them not to do it, and they assured me they wouldn't. And then by the time I got home, I had another phone call to say they've just launched it again. It's becoming a bit of a nightmare.
They did come in rowing eventually when we down line.
I don't know. Probably would have worked. So, as people probably seen, a concerned resident put up some temporary signs around the barbecues and the rubbish bins. And that has, I have to say,
It has made a huge difference.
Yes, it has.
Absolutely.
I've gone to people and asked them to put barbecues out, and they've said there's nowhere saying we don't have to have barbecues, and I've actually said there is.
Yeah.
And they've put them out straight away.
Yeah. So we have, I think, from a previous council meeting, private land signs were agreed. And we said that. So I've sourced those. I think we need 5 for each of the gates into the land. Obviously, I'll have to talk to the landowners, both sides. Luckily, it's the same landowner, just to get permission to put it on their gate coming in. But they've got one going out anyway, so that should be a problem. And the same for the barbecue signs. We can get those done at a similar price.
Yeah.
I've also made some inquiries with parking companies. So there are plenty of companies in the UK who will take over our parking spaces. So the company I've talked to 2 companies. We're trying to get hold of a third at the moment. But basically, what they would do is issue residents with passes. So any residents who go down and park at the lake would be exempt from the parking control. They would put in a pay machine, so you can pay by the hour for as much time as you want at the lake. Obviously not if you're a resident. They would then send down wardens twice a day, but also give us a book of tickets, so we could self-ticket if we need to. So anyone who's, for example, locked in past the gate, we can ticket them for being there. Doesn't park in a bay, of which there are more and more. We've got that many bays, and people like to have 2. People parking down on the chevrons that stop the ambulance getting in, as they did that morning that we were down. So that basically any parking violation on our land would be covered by a £100 fine, of which we would get a percentage. We would also get the revenue from the ticketing. So for paying, so we said £1 an hour, then we would generate parking from that. The cost to the council is 0. They do it all, but obviously they make they make their money from the ticketing.
Is there not a limit to the number of spaces, or that they will do?
There was one of the companies I talked to were, if you haven't got 24 spaces, we're not interested. But another company was, well,
you can get them.
We'll
They
take
will
it
come
on.
just for the number of spaces that we've got.
Yeah, so I think that's an option we can pursue, get quotes for. But I think, obviously, I think the risk is that we drive some people off onto the streets, and that is the risk.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say about that viewing is you could actually go to Cheshire East and say, well, look, with these parking bays, people are now choosing not to. They come in here, they just want a complete free for all, and they're now starting to park on the roads where they shouldn't be parking, and so we do need help with these yellow lines.
Yeah,
I think there's an angle there for us.
They've already
but
do park there, don't they?
Yes, I know, but there's an angle if they don't, if the space is there and they don't park there because we're now charging them.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I think it's a great idea to have external enforcement come and sort out people parking where they shouldn't be parking on our land. I'm very concerned about what the effect might be of even a sort of nominal charge in terms of driving more people to park on nearby roads. And I'm a bit concerned about that aspect in particular of, I think this is a great, potentially good proposal, but I think it should go into the working party to get residents' views on it. Because I think the last thing any of us said at election was that we were going to go off and make our own decisions without consulting with residents and start bringing in things that hadn't been discussed with sort of the wider parish. So, but this may be the way forward and what we should do, but I think we should talk to the residents about it before we do it. If they're interested in coming in, I presume they're only going to be interested in doing the enforcement side if there is also a sort of steady revenue side in terms of ticketing. Do you know what I mean? I assume none of them are interested in, look, they parked where we said they shouldn't, come and do more. Do you see what I mean? I imagine that they won't come and just sort of deal with violations if there isn't also a paid for ticketing thing.
No, we can. The car park, we could make it free.
Right.
And they make the money off the ticketing.
Off the penalties, you mean?
So actually, and they make a lot of money off it.
Yeah.
So if you take something like the Runcorn Bridge, the biggest income from the Runcorn Bridge is the people that drive off over it and don't see the sign.
Yeah.
And it's the escalation of those tickets.
So I would be in favour of having someone come and enforce penalties as soon as possible, but I think bringing in charging for the council's spaces, which might negatively affect somewhere else in the village, without discussing that with people in the village would somewhat go against what I said when I stood for election, which was to involve villagers in these sort of decisions.
Okay, but I suppose the only thing with that is obviously if we set up a set of terms for the car park, which is free parking, and then we consult and people say, well, no, we really want to, because the other side of this is the revenue from this parking we can use to pay for a warden to walk around and tell people to put the barbecues out.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And I think it might be a great idea, and it might be what the majority of the villagers go for, but I'm not going to second guess without talking to them.
Yeah, I get
But then I think
Speak to them.
we can't roll it out in bits. We have to decide what it is we're going to do, whether it's going to be free or charged, and then go forward.
Could it be, Ewan, that if people were behind it, because obviously it's around where I live that would get the most hammer, really, if anybody was going to be parking around there, that if we decide that the parking bays, can we not say to the parking company, we'd like to trial it and see what happens as to whether or not people choose then not to park in the parking bays and park around. It would affect Mere Lane, it would affect all around Jacobs Way, it would probably affect Clover, we're talking about 8 spaces, aren't we? We're talking about 8 spaces, that's all there is, but we're talking possibly making another 2, so you're talking about 10 spaces where people, do they choose to come and pay £1 to swim? That's the difference, or £2 to swim, as opposed to going and paying £6 and £7 everywhere else they go. So for me, it's still a cheap option for them.
Yeah, but all I'd say is
I think so.
they have the room not to Clover because there's no room on Clover already. So.
And the fact that we could end up with a revenue of £20,000 to £30,000 from it to pay for a warden for the lakeside, for me, it's a big thing.
And that's another good point that you raised. Is the other side of this is we have got space to make more car parking spaces.
We also have to, I think, throw into the pot that the farm club, or whatever they call themselves now, we know from Jane and I talking to the people coming down, a goodly percentage of them have never been there before.
No.
What they've seen is the advert
Yes.
in the Sunday Times for next door. And they come down and there's no space there, so they come to us. In any case, it's free with us, not for them.
So they're going there.
And that's not going to go away. That's probably going to be even more numbers there. So we must react to that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's
the idea of of something like the car parking for me that could create the revenue for a warden for me is a huge
Oh, for
thing.
the village.
For the village, yeah, it is.
I totally get that, and I 100% agree. But I also see Nick's side, that we came on here and said we wouldn't do anything without the say-so of the village.
So can I propose on parking and maybe just whether we have one extra spaces? Because I think it does need to be carrot and stick. You can't just beat people. Because there will be some people who are prepared to pay. We still can't park.
Yeah,
so we take that to the working group, get some feedback from the villagers.
I could do that, yeah. We could do that, Chris, couldn't we?
And come back to council with an opinion. In the meantime, I'll continue to talk to these companies and get quotes. And
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's
there is
great.
so in the contract I've seen, there is a 1 month termination, but there's a time where they have to recover their costs, because as you can imagine, shipping all this equipment in is not going to be cheap.
Not at all.
They'll do it in 2 weeks, but they're really keen to do it. So once we decide, it will be very fast.
Yeah, which is great.
But we do need to be fast, because the summer will be over soon. They won't be like.
And that's the beauty of having an August meeting for me as well.
Okay,
We'll
that's
just make a decision.
and then the other thing that on this is that we should look at is a public spaces protection order. So as the landowner, that we need to drive that and contact the relevant people. But basically, to get an order, you have to have detrimental effect on the quality of life of those living locally. It's persistent or continuing in nature, which it is. We've got years of it now. Is unreasonable, which it is. Justifies restrictions being imposed. So I think if everyone's in agreement we should write to Cheshire East and ask them to.
What are the specific behaviours? Because you have to name specifically the behaviours, don't you?
Well, I think obviously the lighting of barbecues. We can have one, around even around dogs.
The protection of wildlife for me is a big one, because I actually had the BTO round to see me yesterday, and they've said the ringing of birds is down massively this year, which partly the reed beds are getting, there's a lot less of them on the left-hand side of the lake, but I think that for me, somebody put on one of the swim groups last night. They were swimming from Earl's Lane. They were there doing a midnight swim. It's just the birds are getting no respite whatsoever. It's got to affect the breeding habits, really. It's also, at this time of year, they shouldn't be coming to me for lots of nut food, and this year and last year I've seen a major difference in how they need food all through the summer. Something's going on with that lake at the moment, and it's very worrying, very worrying.
Okay. No, I agree. I think also we'll have to agree with Cheshire East what the restrictions are and what we're going to do, because we'll have to convince them to do it.
Well, Jake actually said to me yesterday that he's going to try and get Tim Bodie involved, who's the environmentalist for Cheshire East, and he's going to try and get him to come down to see us.
Okay. All right, so just for clarity, so the proposals on here are that Council agree to a budget of £500 to purchase signs and put them up, as discussed at the last meeting. That we agree that we will continue to get quotes from 3 parking companies, with the amendment from Nick that this will go to the working group and the residents will be consulted on their opinions on whether they want to have charging. Yes. And Council will make contact with Laura Woodrow Hurst about the PSPO. Everybody in agreement? Anyone against? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Is to do with the recent change in aircraft activity over Pickmere. Circular the report, a resident has contacted Manchester and got a generic, I think, response with different information. And I think another resident, probably more learned than me, pointed out that it may have something to do with the weather patterns recently. But the only thing I would bring up is, while researching this, it came to my attention that there is a consultation undergoing for Manchester Airport on air corridors, and we are protected by what they call the Knutsford blip, which allegedly is applied by every plane taking off, whether going north or south from Manchester towards us, with, I don't know, the word allegedly in here, apart from Pakistan International Airways, who just take the fine apparently. So the proposal is that that blip will be removed, and therefore the noise that we have been experiencing because of the weather will become an everyday occurrence. So while I think the original people could argue, well, we all knew there was an airport when we moved here, but we have been protected by the blip for many years, and I'm sure more than anyone, I use the airport more than anybody, and I do wake up to the 6 o'clock to Amsterdam, because that's the first plane out of Manchester. But I think this consultation is probably more significant than the recent air noise, but it does, I guess, exemplify the situation we will be in if this change was made. And I think that would be a bit disappointing. So, I don't know if anyone else has any comments on that. I think there used to be a consultation committee some time ago, which Pickmere was part of, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it still is. Well,
Yeah.
it was until a month ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. it's moved, hasn't it, now to Stansted or something?
No, I think that still takes place out of Manchester for the local authority.
So the proposal is that we engage with Manchester Airport and see if we can get some further information and perhaps get back on the committee. I don't know why we stopped going. And also, obviously, residents can read the consultation documents and make their comments. So I would encourage
Can we
them.
share that on our social media for people?
Yeah, it was, I mean, a bit of a shock for me because I had no idea what was going on. But thank you to the concerned resident who brought up the noise. Okay. So next is the HS2 report. I don't intend to go through it. Jack's prepared a very comprehensive report. I've also put the video on Pickmere Life YouTube channel for everyone to see. And I think we should thank Sarah, Chris, and Andrew, who didn't appear but was in the background producing a lot of the arguments, and was at the meeting that Jane and I attended in this building. And we can't underestimate a lot of work. I think, obviously, the circumstances that the chairman was not very good that night and hadn't been on the training course and allowed the previous applicants to overrun. So it did put our group under strain, and it's very hard to think on your feet as to what's important, what should I drop out, which slides should I put up, and all those things. So I think as a village we should be thankful for the people that put their work in, and maybe Andrew could bring that back to the other two who are not here tonight. But I think a sterling effort in difficult circumstances.
Jack's here as well.
Oh, Jack as well. He's always in the background.
Yes, they did a sterling job.
Yeah, I was really very impressed actually that with basically no notice to turn an hour and a half presentation into 30 minutes
Just something.
was really very impressive, and I think both Sarah and Chris spoke very well in what was already quite a high pressure situation to be in, and suddenly became much more high pressure.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the other thing to remember, obviously there was our case, there's a rebuttal by their very expensive council, which we'd love to have been able to afford ourselves. But it's still up to the select committee as to whether they take on board what we've presented.
Yeah.
It's not just because they said we're not going to, doesn't mean they won't be. Okay.
Well, there's something else come out today, or was it yesterday? There's another consultation period.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes, there is.
Is this following
Yeah.
It was announced on the
Following the
4th of July.
Because following this period, it's then going to go back to Parliament, isn't it, and potentially have a consultation period based on any potential changes. Is that
No, they brought out more changes.
Oh,
right.
So there's another consultation thing up until
because
September, I think it is.
Because one of the things that is the moving of Budworth, well, there was the closing of Budworth Road, which is no longer going to happen.
Yeah.
But I believe that now has to go back to a consultation, because there'll now be people who are affected who weren't affected before, and they'll have the right to object to what we objected to. I guess try to push it back.
Because traffic will now go past their house that wouldn't have, because that road was going
And they may have their land compulsory purchase that they wouldn't have had before, because they're just going to close it down.
Right.
Do you think
Okay.
Andrew Shaw's got something that he add to that? It's just
Well, other than it was just, you're right, there are two extra ones. Well, there's one now, but there will be another.
Yeah.
The one now is for an additional bridge at Junction 19.
Yeah.
There's a change to 20A junction on the M6. This is all to do with construction traffic. And you're right, there's Budworth Road, but there's also a transformer station that has to move on the other side of Budworth Road, not because of the stopping up of Budworth Road, but because of some other person's issues to do with HS2, and that will have to be another consultation. But I don't think there are too many people involved in the Budworth Road stop up in terms of land
It's
taking.
another thing for us to be considering.
Yeah, I mean, one of the committees, I'll do a list of what I think the areas are for the committee. I'll circulate that, but HS2 will have to be something that we'll take on. I don't know whether the current team will continue, but it would be good if they could.
Well, yes, it would really.
Well, we still have to start learning.
I certainly wouldn't be volunteering myself.
Okay, consultation which Jack brought to my attention. So traditionally consultations are put onto the agenda at Pickmere Parish Council to inform the residents. So this is to do with bus services. So it's not to do with the bus services we have, but the bus services that we would like in the future. So again, I'd encourage everyone to read the document and consult if they are particularly interested in bus services. But I think it's something that we are, a lot of people in our village are reliant on. We don't have enough bus services at the moment, so I think we can encourage people to put forward their opinions.
Would that be like a new bus service? Would it be something that would come down into the bottom of Mere Lane? There's a lot of old people there, so it wouldn't be a new one.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's about how bus services are. Just a strategic plan for bus services. What's important to communities? What do they want? So we, as a rural community with no shops, we want buses.
We would want them to come all the way down then, yeah.
So those are the things that we need to build up. Otherwise, it would just be what all the people in Crewe thought, because that's the most important thing for Cheshire East, as we all know. Okay. Okay, so I'd now like to propose a resolution to exclude the public to speak and to discuss some private confidential matters. Nothing personal to our guests. Thanks very much for coming.